Hi, this is Kay from Breaking the Spells. I am finally getting around to showing you how I make my own homemade toothpaste. And following that, since it's so similar, I'm going to show you how I make my own personal first aid clay. Okay, let me explain my ingredients first. And I'm going to be showing you how you use a toothbrush with it as soon as I have my toothpaste done. First, we start out with a jar that's glass or plastic, preferably glass, and it's short and squatty, which means you can get what you're mixing it with in it real easily, and it also makes really good access for when it's made for dipping a toothbrush in. Okay, and the main ingredient for grit, I'm showing you two different brands that I have used of bentonite clay. These are two different brands here, just for variety. And the purpose of the clay is going to be as the grit that actually does the primary scrubbing. And the reason it's better than even a lot of, in my opinion, that it's better than a lot of other, even natural toothpaste, is because in the natural toothpaste, instead of bentonite clay, there's calcium carbonate, which is basically ground up limestone. And that is abrasive to the teeth. Yes, it does help clean it, but it's abrasive. This is also very, very alkaline. And when it's alkaline, if you have excess acids in your mouth that might help grow germs, it of course helps to counteract that. Okay, first I'm going to show you that I put a certain amount of tea tree oil in, which will come down to about a tablespoon, but I don't measure, I just pour. This is one brand of economical pure tea tree oil. Of course, I also sometimes use the Now brand. As you can see, this is these are both older labels from the Now brand peppermint oil. And another option is, this is a little less old label, from the Now brand, eucalyptus oil. And this peppermint oil and eucalyptus oil are relatively interchangeable. And I'll explain why you might prefer one over the other. Okay, take some tea tree oil, and I'm going to open it up, and I'm going to put what looks like, about a tablespoon in there. I don't know if you can see that, but it's maybe a tad more, about a tablespoon in there. And I like peppermint oil better than eucalyptus oil. They both are pretty effective at cleaning and making your mouth taste good too. Eucalyptus oil is milder. If you have an irritated mouth for any reason, you might prefer that over the peppermint oil. And eucalyptus oil is a bit cheaper. Anyway, the reason for the tea tree oil first is the tea tree oil actually has 500 active ingredients in it, and it is an incredibly good disinfectant and an item to clean with. It's even used in some hair shampoos to kill lice. It does all kinds of things. For a long time, I've scrubbed my teeth with a regular natural toothpaste without fluoride, and then added baking soda and some tea tree oil drops to it. But I found a way eventually to just gravitate to mixing everything but the baking soda in one jar. Again, we have about a tablespoon of tea tree oil in here. I'm going to put about a teaspoon of peppermint oil because it does taste better than the tea tree oil, and it leaves a real fresh flavor in your mouth. And of course, there are 3 teaspoons in a tablespoon, which makes 1 teaspoon of this equal to about a third of the tea tree oil. You can make it with all tea tree oil, but the flavor is a lot better when you either add peppermint oil or eucalyptus oil. And I'm going to add what feels like about a teaspoon of peppermint oil. Okay, next I'm going to add bentonite clay. This is my favorite as far as being economical, and everything that I mix with, excuse me, just one second, I'm going to grab a plastic spoon that I forgot to get. Everything that I mix with is the reason I have a plastic fork is plastic. This product needs to only come in contact with glass or plastic as a container or as a tool to mix it with once it makes contact with anything wet. And that reason is because the clay is very, very, very detoxifying of metals, and it might actually grab a little bit of metal on a lid or on a spoon or fork that you might use to stir it. And so, and it's actually used to detoxify the body in all kinds of ways, and it grabs heavy metals and basically neutralizes them. So the next thing I put in here is I'm going to take about what, again, this looks like about a tablespoon, and put about a tablespoon of it in there, which is 3 teaspoons. And initially, I'm going to take a plastic fork and stir it. You'll notice that it absorbs it right away, and that's because this clay draws out a lot of things. It'll help draw out, germs, dirt, and all kinds of things. Then it's a little bit too gritty, which is my next ingredient is just plain water, and I put in about a tablespoon. If you were to measure it on your own, you could just adjust as you go. And as I add the water, it kind of softens it. You can make more, but I'm making a small amount so you can more easily see how well it's stirred. And if it's still a little dry and gritty, we just add more water until it takes on kind of a real thick, creamy texture. You'd be surprised. You think it absorbed all the water, and that it's going to absorb, but it not necessarily. You just need to keep getting it from the bottom and mixing it back up and keep it well stirred until you're sure that it's through more or less absorbing and in a sense drying out the moisture. It's still just a little bit stiff, so I'm going to add just a little bit more water. Let's see, if I add too much, I can always add more clay. And you see, if I go like this the reason I like the fork is it helps. You can kind of jab it and get the water to go down lower. It's getting creamy now, which is what we're looking for. Okay. And if it ever does dry out on you, you can always add more water, mix more water. And this is getting to be a relatively ideal texture. Whoops. It kills germs anyways. I did wash the counter prior to this. Just go like this. Keep folding. Oops. Get rid of the... I've used this fork over and over again. I think I wore it out. Okay. Anyway, just kind of go like this. And I'm going to then take my finger or a spoon. You can use a spoon too. I'll take this spoon from the bentonite clay and kind of push it down. You see how there's kind of a glossy, wet look to it? That's really perfect, because that shows that it's supple and is, just the perfect texture. Really, it's done. But I want to show you what I do, just kind of wiping the rim. Let me rinse my fingers a second. Okay. And you can use this by itself with your toothbrush by dipping it in here. Of course, you want to, only do it with people you don't mind sharing the dip with. Carlos and I dip into the same jar and don't think anything of it. Plus, what's in here, really, I don't think germs could survive this, and that's part of the purpose of the mixture. And you see it looks kind of wet and glossy on the toothbrush. Well, what I do in addition to this, because when you brush just with this, it's a little sticky and a little hard to rinse off of your teeth, although, that's not necessarily a problem for some people. I will take, and I keep here's baking soda, I'm turning the brand around there. And I keep some in a nice glass jar, which looks real pretty on my bathroom counter. I take about, a teaspoon or a little bit less like this, put it in the palm of my hand, and I take the serving, which is basically just getting some on the head of your toothbrush, and I dip it in here, and I will put it all over my teeth, mostly to get the clay all over my teeth. And then as I brush, I keep dipping. And you often don't dip, I just basically because you'll wear off the baking soda off of the toothbrush, but you'll still have some clay on there, and just keep dipping until you're done brushing your teeth. And the baking soda is also very alkaline and is very, very scrubbing. And along with the bentonite clay is not as abrasive and harmful to your teeth as the calcium carbonate that you would have even in your natural toothpaste. And there's a lot of pumice and all kinds of things in natural toothpaste and the unnatural toothpaste that is actually, even though I don't think it absolutely doesn't clean as well as this in my experience. We don't want to be wearing our teeth down little tiny bit by little tiny bit when we're trying to preserve them and keep them clean. So this is why I do it this way. And I have told my dentist for decades that I've done it this way, and they've never complained, and they've always thought it was a really good idea. So it's not anything that's way out there. And also, when I do it this way, and I really like this toothbrush. I don't want to advertise for the brand. I'm not really into that. But the reason for the electric toothbrush is it does, having that circular motion when you have a good head on it, and it's not all worn out. It tends to get into crevices better. When I do this and I go for a dental cleaning, even if I wait a year instead of going every 6 months when it's paid for by insurance, um, what there's basically virtually nothing to clean on my teeth. And before I used tea tree oil and baking soda and or adding the bentonite clay to it, um, my dental cleaning was a little bit more like the average experience. Better than it used to be before I used any of these ingredients, but it's still really, basically you can show by your own personal results if you should so choose to try this. So I'm going to set these down, pause for a moment, and I'm going to show you how I make my own personal first aid clay mix, which is very similar to this, just a little bit different. Now I'm about to show you how I make my own personal first aid clay mix. I've used it on bug bites, I've used it on cuts, I've used it on wounds, pretty much just anywhere you want to draw out possible germs or toxins and kill, basically help heal and do it in a really, really aggressive kind of quick way. So I'm going to turn around here and we're going to show you how I make it. It's very, very similar to how to make my own toothpaste, but there are a few less ingredients. So we start, like with the toothpaste, with a short, squatty jar, preferably glass. I like the plastic lid. And again, the reason for glass and plastic only and not using metal is our bentonite clay. And again, I'm going to show you two brands like I did when I made the homemade toothpaste. The bentonite clay is very drawing of toxins and germs. And bentonite clay can basically absorb and neutralize, because it's negatively charged. It can absorb and neutralize toxins which are positively charged, and also germs. And it will do that to many times more the weight or volume of the clay itself. So, and it also helps to make a little pack on a wound or a bug bite so that it stays on. In our household, we have used this for black widow bites, brown recluse bites. We've used it for tick bites. We've used on animals too. We've used it for mosquito bites and bee stings and even chiggers. So it's a pretty good, pretty good personal all-round first aid clay, and very cheap to make once you just have some basic ingredients. So the first basic ingredient, similar to making the toothpaste, is tea tree oil. This is just one brand that's really cheap, and you can get it, of course, in smaller containers. And even I often have a 16-ounce container around. It's a 4-ounce container, and I don't measure, but you might want to if you try this. And I pour it in the bottom of the glass jar. And I forgot to tell you, shows you this is real. I forgot to tell you that the reason we use plastic for stirring once it's wet is because bentonite clay does also draw out heavy metals, and we don't want to draw the heavy metals from a container or its lid into the clay. We want to use all its power and basically everything it can do on drawing out the venom of a bug bite or germs. Or some toxins that may be on your skin. So first of all, I'm going to pour what feels like about a tablespoon of tea tree oil, a generous tablespoon. You see it down there. Okay. And the peppermint oil is optional. The reason I like to include it is because in the toothpaste is because, it tastes and smells better, and tea tree oil smells a little medicinal. And the peppermint oil is very, 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 very cooling. That's why it's often used as an analgesic. Whatever you do, these oils are not something to get in your eyes. It will hurt, okay? And after you've made it or put it on your skin, you might want to wash your hands real well. The peppermint oil is being so cooling, literally cooling. It's even been known to be, put on your skin when you have a hot flash to cool your whole body off, or sometimes rub on the bottom of babies' feet where they can't reach and get it in their eyes, and to bring a fever down, although fevers can often be good things. So this peppermint oil I put in, similar to my toothpaste, about what looks like or feels like a teaspoon, because it can really help put out the fire when it's a bug bite. If it were just for boo-boos and not bug bites, you may just use the tea tree oil alone. And the main purpose of it is it's just out of this world germ killing. So is peppermint oil, but tea tree oil is more so. Okay, so once we have about a tablespoon of tea tree oil and about a teaspoon of peppermint oil, which means there's 3 teaspoons in a tablespoon, so about 1/3 peppermint oil, we begin to add the bentonite clay powder. This brand is more economical, and it's a very, very nice fine powder. If you want to look in there, you can see it there. Okay, I've paid online as little as for this whole container, which is a pound. I paid as little as $10 or $11. I'm going to put in here what kind of looks and guesstimates like about a tablespoon, which looks like about 3 teaspoons, and drop it right in the oil. And take a plastic fork again. I don't let it make contact with any metal, and I give it a stir like this, and it's going to quickly absorb it. And I think that tablespoon was a little smaller than my last tablespoon I made my toothpaste, so just going to go in and add a little bit more, maybe about another teaspoon, and stir it around like this. And just like when I made my toothpaste, it starts to dry out, because this gives you an idea how much this clay absorbs. Okay, and it gets drier and drier, and at some point it'll stop getting drier. Once in a while, for some reason, just the way all these come together, it didn't need to add water. And this is a good example that this turned out this way. It's creamy. You can see that. It has a gloss to it, and it can be just used really just as is. Okay. And so I'm going to set the fork down. I'm going to show you what I would do. If I got a mosquito bite right here, I would first dip my finger in and first rub it in. And your pores pretty much face one direction. So I rub it in, like either make an X in 2 directions or kind of go circular like this. And just really rub it in. And let's say the bite was right in the center. I'll either pick up some excess and leave a thicker amount on the center, or just dip again and put it right on there. When it dries, it kind of, wish I had time in this video to let it show you. It'll take about maybe 5 minutes, and it'll dry to look kind of like a bruise. It kind of looks like a slightly greenish, grayish, dry layer on your skin. One time, Carlos, my husband, came up to me and said, "Oh, you got a bruise on your arm." And I said, "No, that was the clay." And the thing is, if you're going to be going somewhere and you don't want to look, like you have this stuff on your skin, it works so quickly, especially if you get like a bad mosquito bite. You can feel that it's, the mosquito bite itch and sting goes away so much quicker that you can just, when you're done, just take just a little water and just wipe off the excess, and then there's no trace of it, because it does work really quickly. I've taken tea tree oil by itself and put it on a bee sting or a wasp or hornet sting when it's just like, or a black fly bite or horsefly bite, which we often get when we're in the pool because they're attracted to it. And I mean, I've gone from, oh my goodness, that really hurts, and rubbing this on, similar to how I did just now, rub it in real well, and then maybe dab a little bit more on, for good measure. And it's just in a matter of seconds, that pain just starts to go away. And then again, that's why once this is done doing its job, you can just kind of wash it off. Okay, that's really about it, except for my overall introduction, which I don't think I even need anymore. I pretty much explained everything and why I do it. And I want to say that, these videos here like this are intended, this is my disclaimer, they're intended for informational purposes only, and they're not to diagnose, treat, prevent, or cure any disease. And of course, do your own homework. And personally, I've just done this for a very long time, and I find it's so cheap to use because I can make so many little jars or half jars like this. This will go through, weeks worth of mosquito bites. And stay there 1 second. Carlos is my cameraman because my hands are a bit full here. The toothpaste, which I showed you how to make in the first video, you notice it's still glossy and still moist. This toothpaste, for two of us, using it once or twice a day, usually once, this will last the two of us, well, maybe a month or two for, virtually pennies. Yes, you do initially invest in the ingredients, but it's so wonderful. And we think it works so well. And you just ultimately wind up spending a lot less money, and you wind up, having a lot more power to know, what goes in or on your body, and have a lot more control of it, and also have really nice, effective stuff. Anyway, if you can come back up here one more time, I want to say thank you, everybody, and thank you for putting up with me having been so busy and not making any more videos. If I get really lucky today with my timing, I might even go show you the cilantro I grew, how easy it was, and talk to you about why I did it. Bye-bye. Thanks again. This is Kay from Breaking the Spells.